Hello and welcome to the Banker's Top 1000 series for 2021. I'm John Everington, the Middle East and Africa editor for The Banker, and I'm delighted to be joined today by our editor, Joy Macknight. Hi there, Joy.
Hi, John.
So, Joy, we've compiled all the figures, all the data's in, the rankings are out. What are the big stories from this year's Top 1000?
So this year we tracked banks from 102 countries. So we definitely have a good idea of the health and the wealth of the global banking system. And I have to say, it's not too bad. Comparably. So this year, the total aggregate Tier 1 capital was increased by 13% to almost $10 trillion, which is, the highest ever. Banks also managed to, on aggregate, add 16% to their total assets and also 17% to their gross deposits. But of course, a lot of banks took a bit of a profit hit this year. But 78 countries managed to increase their profits, even though it was at a lesser rate than the year before. But another story that's been running for a couple of years now has really been the top Chinese banks. The four banks are sitting very solidly at the very top of the ranking. And now they have almost double the amount of the largest four U.S. banks in terms of Tier 1 capital. But they've double-digit growth compared to the U.S. banks, and so they've extended their lead this year. But we're really here to talk about Africa. John, can you tell me a little bit about the developments across the African continent this year in terms of the rankings?
Certainly. What we've seen, and we've seen this over the past years, but it's really been exacerbated in the 2021 rankings for the COVID era. We've seen a tale of two sides of the continent. The sub-Saharan African side, the large economies of Nigeria and South Africa, have had quite a hit. The lenders there, we talked about profitability earlier, not only a profitability hit, but also a Tier 1 capital hit as well. So you've seen a number of the very big lenders in the rankings coming down from where they were in the 2020 edition. So that's one side for South Africa and Nigeria. On the other hand, in North Africa, you have continued buoyant growth led by Egypt, which has been the story for a number of years within Africa, but also positive growth within Morocco and Tunisia as well.
Okay, so can we drill down a little bit in terms of the performance of the South African banks?
Definitely. So South African banks have been dominant for many, many years in the top 1,000. Standard Bank has been the top bank for over 20 years, and it's still the top bank. It had a 5.8% increase in Tier 1 capital in the 2021 rankings. It has lost a little bit of ground in the overall rankings because it's a little bit smaller, that increase, compared with what we've seen before. So it slips a few places in the overall rankings. We've seen Tier 1 capital falls within the other members of the Big Four in South Africa. For ABSA, for First Rank, for Nedbank, they've all slipped down in the top 1,000 rankings this year because of that fall in Tier 1 capital.
Okay, and Nigeria is another huge economy on the continent. How is Nigerian banks doing?
It's the same picture in terms of the main rankings in terms of Tier 1 capital. Again, Nigeria was very much affected by the COVID crisis and the drop in oil prices in the first part of the year. Of course, there was a bit of a recovery in the second part of the year, but it still took its toll on lenders. So you've seen pretty much all the Nigerian lenders falling back this year. That being said, what's worthy of note is that Nigerian lenders still are very, very profitable in terms of their global peers. So Nigerian lenders, three of them, Guarantee Bank, United Bank for Africa and Zenith Bank, they top the return on capital table this year within Africa. Guarantee Bank is actually number 4 in the world in terms of profitability. So a difficult year for lenders, but the profitability story still stands. Okay,
and now let's go to North Africa. How did the banks in North Africa perform?
It's still the story that keeps on giving. The North African banks, particularly those in Egypt, continuing to climb, continuing to grow on the back of Egypt's continued economic growth since about 2016 when the currency was devalued, which really set off a kind of economic growth spurt within the country. So National Bank of Egypt was 5th in the 2020 rankings, has grown considerably and has risen to 4th position in the overall rankings. But the big growth story this year is Bank Misr, which was the highest growth story on the continent by quite some distance, and also one of the fastest growers worldwide as well. So those two banks have been the standout for Egypt. There have been others as well. It's also worth noting that other economies within North Africa Morocco and Tunisia have had, it's been a mixed growth story over the past years. They've been a bit up and down, but this year has been a good positive one for them as well. And in addition to the Egyptian lenders, Banque Tijari Wafa has been one of the other big growers this year.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your insights, John.
Thank you, Joy.